Okay, so today's video is going to be part one of doing a freehand and then building the line weight with specific needle sizes that are going to allow us to create structure for our piece, create contrast. We're going to do it in a difficult area. We're going to do it on the hand. That's thin skin. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I'm going to spend a lot of time in this video talking about how to use your Sharpies to create a freehand. And here's the homie. He's about to get tattooed today. He's going to have a great time. So, needless to say, one of the first things you're going to need is Sharpies so that you can freehand onto the skin. Okay, so we're going to be freehanding onto the hand. I'm going to be drawing a paintbrush today onto his hand. I have gloves on. I'm going to try to create a shape that follows the hand. And I'm using a light marker as my rough draft. In case I don't like it, he doesn't like it, whatever. People can say things about the shapes when it's light, and you don't have to commit to it because you're going to be using a darker marker later. As you can see, I have a light marker, a medium marker, and then a fine dark marker so that I can describe some of the details to myself. So I have this, and you can see the knuckle right here. This is a difficult area to work with. So I'm gonna bring it on down like that and use the shape of the knuckle.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem, homie. I'm recording a video right now. So I'm gonna keep pushing that structure I'm trying to build. I can see on this side that I want the structure to come out more. Once again, I'm using a light marker so I don't have to stress too much about my actual shape. Just making the shape. Just seeing kind of what each one of my options do. Okay, I like that. Now I'm gonna bring that line in short and this line in long, creating a variation in it. Bring the brush right up to that other tattoo. And actually, I'm gonna flare a little bit. Once again, why I'm using a light marker, I can create the shape and see what it does. And what I'm seeing right here is that I have an opportunity to create a fold. So I have the actual shape here, and then here I have a particular chance to fold the brush and work with the movements of his body. Now I have a really, really light stencil. That's not gonna fly for tattooing. It's gonna be easy to wipe that off. So I'm gonna come back around my dark, and I'm gonna watch my edge. Because now I'm trying to get the edge that I actually wanna keep. And this is a fat marker though, so I still have that thin one. And that'll come into play here in a little bit, because I'm just creating more of the shape, more dramatic of the shape that I like. I look at that, I can see following the hand. One of the reasons why I'm at this part of the hand and not going over on the side of the palm is because it's hard to put ink over there. You want to consider those things. The more difficult areas, you can see right here, I actually want to scuff that and bring that line weight out. The more difficult areas, you want to kind of try to localize backgrounding to them. That will help your piece shine, and there's no problem in talking to somebody about multiple sessions so that they can get the product that they need, because sometimes you need to put, actually all the time really, you need to put attention to detail with everything. Now I can sit here and draw on this thing forever, but I'm just gonna follow my line because I actually really like the first one I made. Maybe dramatize that. You can see sometimes I'm kind of loosely holding the marker, that way it doesn't grab onto the skin. I'm almost just making dots, letting my wrist shake. That can kind of help not let the marker get dragged around by the body, creating a shape. Now that it's darker, you can really see what it is that we're working with here. Now up here I plan on having kind of a saturation. Now I want thin lines too, because I talked about line weight. And some of this, I want to create different variations of line weight. Now, a lot of this you need to handle when you actually get onto the tattoo. But right now, I'm gonna create like a wood texture. I'm gonna make it a more believable texture. Little lines tend to make textures for you. Make things look like they're actually a material. That communication of material is really important. So that communicates that type of material. As a lot of people know, paintbrushes have bristles. How much of those details do we want to try to impart into this? Probably a lot. We probably want really, really thin lines. But do I want to draw all the thin lines? Or do I just want to draw enough lines to know kind of what I'm going for? If I draw those lines, that doesn't stop me from putting little lines in between them. But what I have here is a stencil that communicates to me what my intentions are with the drawing. So I don't have to think as hard while I'm actually in the midst of the tattoo. When we pan back, I'll have a full setup and we'll get down. Okay, so we are coming back to this to build our line weights. Now what I have in front of me is a 14 round, I have an 11 round shader, And the intention of right now is to build that outline and actually build a larger outline on one side than the other. And that's for the purpose of showing like directionality. We're showing shading. So we're gonna show that the light is coming from this direction. And then we're gonna do that with a few techniques. So first, we're gonna apply Vaseline to our entire piece. By applying Vaseline to our entire piece, we're smoothing the skin and making it easier for it to get tattooed. And then we're also protecting our stencil. Make sure that when you dip into your ink, you give it a chance to go up into the cartridge. Try not to get too much ink on the actual cartridge because it'll just get messy. Okay, so I'm gonna start up here, being careful that my client, and I'm stretching the skin of the hand based off the center point. I'm looking to see that that line that I made has now opened up. That's how I know it's stretched. When I place the needle in, I move slow and I trust that the shape of my needle is going to be the shape of the line I'm going to create. And I move slow, I let the machine do the job. I pat it, I don't wipe it. Pat it, don't wipe it. Trying to protect your stencil. Give it all the time it needs to actually apply the ink. It's a hand, so the skin is extremely thin. When the skin is thin like that, you don't want to try to get too much depth. You'll hurt the person, the ink will just fall out, everybody will be unhappy. See how strong and black those lines are? On that other side, I'm going to do the same thing. Trying to hold my cartridge at a 45-degree angle, coming back on my line because I'm using a round shader. That's what'll make it solid. And that's what'll make it clean too. There's a couple ways to make a clean line. You could do a single drag. With the round shader, I recommend going back and forth in a healthy way, watching the skin's not getting too damaged. This is because the round shader is a little bit of a soft look. And to make it look clean, you want to, how do I say it? Because you're going back and forth, you're making variations in your movements, which is actually creating a cleaner line. Rather than when you just do one strike, you're forced to have done it perfect the first run. See how I'm building these line structures? Watching that the skin's not getting too dry. A little more Vaseline. Notice that because I've been patting the stencil remains. I'll try not to get my head too much in the video as I angle around it, but I might. And you notice I had that special line style that I was trying to approach here. watching that there's still lots of breathing room in the interior of the tattoo. I have two very interesting shapes right there. I'm gonna come on this line and I'm gonna try to drag the line. I'm not gonna scuff it this time. I'm gonna sit the needle in and I'm gonna watch from the other side so that I can see my stencil. I'm gonna move slow and use my shoulder, use my wrist, use my elbow to maneuver it. That way I get a consistent movement. Now up here I feel that the skin got softer. Come back in around. Had that. Do I like it? Yes. Well, keep it. You don't have to do everything at once. You're getting your stencil in there. That's okay if that's what you get done. Now you notice my thinner lines are starting to get wiped away. That's because they're thin. Now in this case scenario, I'm not going to stress it. I'm the one who drew it, so I know what it's going to be. But if you notice that while you're tattooing, you might actually want to switch your setup to the needle that you were going to use to do that and get that in there so you don't lose it. The higher detail you have on a piece, the more that's what you're going to consider. You don't want to lose your stencil. I'm going to come back around here. Once again, the skin is changing to a softer terrain. I can put more time on it and I can go a little deeper. Now I have a corner piece. Try to go all the way up to the corner and come back from the corner. That way you don't make a fat tip. Because you're looking for that sharp look, right? Or maybe you're not, but we'll go into how to make a soft look later. I'm gonna come back on that line just because I simply could feel that I didn't push all the way through. But that's okay. Once again, you're gonna get really clean lines because of that. Watch your client, make sure that he's not shaking too much and going through it too much. It's important. It's not just a piece of paper, it's a real person. We're gonna come back on down here. The knuckle is gnarly. The knuckle is gnarly. It don't feel like the rest of your body. Be careful around the knuckle. Treat it like if you've ever tattooed fruit for practice. How fruit is round. The knuckle bone is round. Don't just smash right on through his knuckle. Try to move around it. Try to get the ink into it as it's a spherical shape. This is not only art practice, but this is medical practice. It is both. Now this is where I really want to create an intriguing shape that I did not create with my stencil. My stencil made that fatty, just straight line. I'm going to try to create a curve because that's what I want it to look like. I want it to look like the paintbrush. Notice that it's getting dry down there, getting hard to see. Get some Vaseline on there. Now I got a little bit of black ink on with that. I got to watch for that. That could be on my glove. That's going to make it hard for me to see the tattoo. Come back around, try to get Vaseline on it without doing that. Okay, we are solid. Let's hit it around. Once again, being cool. Cool on the skin. We're not trying to smoke this guy. We're not trying to murder him on the spot. It does hurt. If you notice the skin lifts up like that as a canal, that's from your stretch. Sometimes with the hand, literally grab their hand and stretch it by holding it. You're holding his hand. Now my machine is at more than a 45-degree angle now. That does create more trauma on the skin. Be careful of your depth when hitting something at an angle like this. It will also put ink in a wider radius. Remember that a tattoo needle is like a paintbrush. Unironically, we're tattooing a paintbrush with a paintbrush. A tattoo machine is like a paintbrush. Sometimes you have enough Vaseline already on the skin, just wipe it over the line. Once again, I'm gonna hold his hand And sometimes that Vaseline's a little slippery. Use the cloth itself. You see how I have a good stretch on the hand? I'm gonna start from the interior of the other shape, because if I start from the other shape, it's gonna show. They're gonna blend, and one's gonna lose. And you'll notice I'm slipping a little bit on all those ligaments of the hand. Don't freak out, don't continue trying to drag a line that you're slipping on. Just maneuver.
I don't know when the pain stopped, but
You've already placed a line. You don't necessarily have to be super hard when you go over it. You can move a little softly and just see how it gets in there. Okay, I like the shape I'm making. Making a soft line shape. A lot of people would consider this neo-traditional. I'll let you kind of figure that out. I just call it cartoons. I associate it more with anime. Notice the skin isn't taking the ink super well. Different skin is going to react differently based on how much trauma it's received from the sun. I like my structure on the piece. How much black is too much black? You'll have to determine that for yourself. It has to do with the style. But we have enough boldness in our line that creates a contrast between the skin and what we're trying to do on the interior. Now, like I said before, I wanted it to seem like it was darker on the interior. So I'm gonna come back around to that shape and I'm gonna create like a curve. Then I'm gonna fill in that curve. And I know he's going through it. Knuckle is gnarly. God rest his soul. Now when I did that curve, I started from the center point and I brought it to somewhere in the interior. I brought it out. I created an interesting shape. Nothing wrong with scuffing it in there like that. Be nice to them wherever you can. Once again, skin's getting kind of dry. I'm gonna get some Vaseline on there. I'm gonna come back around this piece right here. I'm gonna follow that same shape.
it's her left arm.
I'm gonna bring it in. Now this is a little bit risky. If you already had a design that you liked and you felt like that was maxing out what you want to try to accomplish, then stick with it. But I feel like we can do a lot more with this. So I'm actually gonna bring this line out more onto the hand, creating more contrast from the hand skin. More solid. But do the same thing up here. You're gonna just bring it out from the hand. Notice it's getting more and more slippery.
Did you put it back here?
Watch for how slippery the skin is
by the
getting.
iPad.
You're just creating shapes. So create a shape next to the shape you've already created. How you create that shape is going to determine the product you get. This is acting almost like a background. But the fact that this line on this side is wider and more solid than the other line is going to communicate to people what this object is. Now you notice I lost all my little lines on there. That was kind of what I wanted you to see is going to happen. I don't want you to be in that situation on your own where that occurs. So we are going to have to redraw that if we really need to. But once again, staying on track, staying calm. My goal is to build this black just a little bit more. Be calm. If you lose something in your stencil, try not to let it throw you off of what you're already trying to do. Right now we're just painting black shapes. You can call it lining, call it saturating. It's really what it is. You're just painting black shapes. And it's creating some intrigue. Now we have a good curvature on this. Notice we have a cool shape. Let's try to go with that. So let's start at the core of it and just slowly come out from our line. Watching where it goes. We're coming out somewhere in left field. Creating that shape is extremely important to the intrigue of this piece. We're using black to create structure. If you use the black to create structure properly, then you can do just about anything. Shading, color, not even do anything with it, and it's gonna look good because you've created contrast from the skin. And notice I have what are called vacations in my fill-in. That's where I didn't tattoo. Be careful of those. Try to cross hatch. If you ever had an art class and they told you about cross hatching, going the opposite way of what you already struck, it's the best way to camouflage those kinds of things. If you keep going the same direction, it will show. If you keep going the same direction like that, it's gonna show. But if you go the opposite direction, you're gonna mask that had any vacations at all. Small circles to fill in. We have all this shaping here now. It's looking really, really good. These are intriguing. Do we want to do anything with the top of it? What could we communicate with that? Well, if this side of it is darker, that also means that this interior is darker. We just have to commit to it. We made that shape, and if we don't commit to that shape, then our piece is not going to look like it's following continuous dimension, like a 3-dimension. So we're going to bring that black up and create another interesting curvature shape. Just making shapes. A lot of the most interesting pieces of art are made out of triangles. So think in terms of triangles. So if we look at this, we have so much intriguing shape in it. Doesn't even need to be filled in if we didn't want to. We're going to though. But let's call that a piece for the moment. Let's give our client a break. Extremely important. Give your person a break. Don't try to torture them to death.